Hello, this is Jeff Robertson with Penton Audio USA, and this is part one of a two-part tutorial video series explaining the differences between the two message player components found in the IDA8's AT Studio software. Now please make sure you have viewed the previous video on audio message file management and also basic message player setup prior to viewing these videos. There are two types of DSP message players you can use in your design: the multi-message and the single message player components. This video, part 1, will explain how to set up the multi-message unit. Part 2 will detail the single message player. Let's begin. As you can see in my design, I've got a couple of message players in here. But in your DSP component, over here to the left, you will see one item in the DSP component labeled message. If we expand that tree out, there is a message player and a MM player. The MM player is the multiple or multi-message player. So let's drag one of these in here, and you can see it doesn't even ask us if we want any components or anything else in there. It comes prefabbed with 8 triggers or logic input triggers and 2 audio outputs. So it will play 2 audio message files simultaneously based on the triggers. If we open this up, you'll see we have channel 1 and channel 2. And either one of these, we could start adding all of our message files and the way they behave. Since we already have one in our design, let's go up here and double click channel 1, which is what I've got wired up here to a virtual logic control. And a virtual logic control means I can just double click and I can actually push a button, and that would simulate a contact closure or a logic signal input. And we have a channel 2. So channel 1, the first thing we want to do is add an event. So we will add the event. We can give it a priority, but the event already gives it a name called assembly message. And what we want to do is actually go into the message assembly portion. So we'll click on this right here. It brings us up another pop-up window. And in here, we need to add all the messages that we want strung together in this multi-messaging unit. We'll click Add, and I will go ahead and pull. When you go into your file, it defaults on the resource where all your audio files have been saved on your computer, but make sure you click to Machine. These are the audio files that have already been saved and copied into the machine. This is detailed in the other video that I was describing earlier. So if you're unfamiliar with how to do that, please go review that other video. These are all my files available to me. One of the key differences between a single message player and a multiple message or a multi-message unit player is the multiple message unit will allow you to string multiple audio files together, and it will play them one after another, each one a single time, to give you a single coherent multi-string audio message. And I will demonstrate that, but I wanted to explain the difference because in this single message player, you can still link multiple audio files together to form a message, but each one of those files can be set with a number of repeats and a space or an idle time in seconds before it plays the next one. To show the difference in this, I'm going to pull, let's make this Delta Flight number message our first message, and it's going to be triggered from logic input 1. Here's your 8 logic inputs that's at the top of your multi-message unit, and also you can set it for dynamic, which means if any of the 8 logic inputs are triggered, then it will play the message. That's really helpful in rail systems or subway systems where you might have multiple proximity or PIR motion detectors and you want any number of them to trigger the same message. This is a way to simplify that option. So there's our first message. Let's add a second audio file to this message, and we will say 1242. Good, same trigger. We will add a third audio file to this message, and we'll say departing at gate. And there we go, same logic trigger. And let's add a fourth audio file to this message, and we'll say A31. Same audio. So in theory, when this message is triggered, and that's control logic input number 1, it will play these 4 audio files together, and it should say Delta Flight number 1242 is departing now at gate A31. So we will say OK. Now, A couple of other options for each one of these messages. One is the source type. This is normal security or security and evacuation. These are explained in other videos, but basically they are global software or global priority that you can assign throughout your design. So whenever an evac or security and evac page or event is triggered, it can also trigger these events, or this can trigger an evac or security, and it gets quite convoluted. So look for that in another video. The other mode that you need to really know about is the mode, and you have two options here. One is control, which is the default, and the other is trigger. Now, control means that as long as the control or contact is maintained, the message is going to keep playing over and over and over until the contact is reset or the logic input is broken or turned off. That is why when it's on control, you see the number of times here, there's no option. If, however, I set this for trigger, then I can come here and I can actually say how many times I want this message to play. The one key thing is the trigger, when you discontinue or interrupt the trigger or you open up the trigger contact, it will stop the message at the end of the current audio file that is playing. That means if you have 4 audio files, if it's playing audio file number 2, when it finishes playing whatever that audio file number 2 is, it's going to stop at the end of that and interrupt the message. If you keep the trigger contact maintained, it will play the message however many times you have entered here and then stop on its own. Regardless if the contact is maintained after that, to reset it, you would have to reset that contact, which means open it up and then re-trigger it. To start off, let's demo it in control mode. Here we go. And we will stop this. And we can see we're wired to our output 1 going there. And we're going to logic trigger. So let's go ahead and compile and store this. All right, we will go online. Now, to make this easier to demonstrate, I've got a 4-port logic control. So now I can actually go in and just trigger any one of the 4 logic outputs here. I've also put logic meters on the various controls so we can actually see it operate, so we know it's supposed to be doing what it's supposed to be doing. I am going to turn on logic number 1, which is going to trigger this message. Now, this could be your evacuation inputs from the rear of the IDA8. That's what these 9 are right here. It could be a schedule trigger. It could be any other logic event from the page controller. Anything that's going to trigger the logic is going to simulate the same thing that I'm doing here. Now, we're set up for control mode, which we go back to look. We'll see it is set up for control mode there. So let's go ahead and play our message. And we'll see the audio going here, and hopefully you'll be able to hear it in the background. Here we go.
Delta flight number 1242 is now departing at gate A31. Delta flight number.
Okay, there you go. That's the whole audio, and it will continue to play as long as this contact is maintained. So I'm going to interrupt it, and it will stop it right in the middle of the audio. It said now departing, and it stopped immediately in the middle of the audio file. Prove that. We'll do this again.
Delta flight. Delta flight.
See, so I can start and stop it with this control. As long as the control is maintained or logic is maintained, it'll play forever until the logic is reset or opened up. Let's go offline real quick. Or we'll change this control mode to trigger mode, and we'll say play twice. All right, that works for me. We will compile and store again. Go back online. Now we are in trigger mode. So when I play this again, we'll do this, and you will see that when I interrupt this, it will finish the current audio file that it is playing. I will stop it in the middle of is now departing from.
Delta flight number 1242.
Now we'll interrupt.
Is now departing at gate.
See, it played the whole is now departing at gate audio file before it stopped. So it's almost like an interrupt. Let's do it again.
Delta flight number.
See, I stopped it even right after the first syllable, but it went through the whole first audio file. Now let's let it go play, and hopefully it will stop after it plays the 2 times that we defined right here in the trigger mode and how many times, regardless of the fact that I have not turned the control off. So let's go.
Delta flight number 1242 is now departing at gate A31.
That's one.
Flight number 1242 is now departing at gate A31.
And there you go. It stopped by itself after the 2 times. I can turn the logic off. I can start it again.
Delta flight number.
And we can stop it, obviously. That is the multiple message player unit in a nutshell, and the very few options that you can do in there, but it's a very versatile component. Now, one thing to remember is you can only bring 2 multiple message players into your design at any one time in any unit. We already have one in there. Let's drag another. There's another one. Now see if we try to drag a third. It only says there's 2 in the system. You can't add any more. Now we can bring as many single players as we want. And that really is virtually no limit. You can have as many of those as you want. But as far as the multiple message players, you can only bring 2 of those into your unit, but that gives you 4 simultaneous messages. That concludes our part 1 of the message player component tutorial video. Go to part 2 and learn more about the single message player unit, which plays 1 message but has a whole lot of other features within the unit. Thank you, and please have a wonderful day.